Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about electric cars. And specifically, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the economics of EVs. Are they really the future of transportation, or are they, just a luxury for the rich and famous?
That's a question we get a lot these days.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of research and analysis here, and believe me, some of these numbers might surprise you.
Well, let's get into it then.
So we'll be breaking down the true cost of owning an electric car, compared to those good old gas-powered vehicles.
Yeah, because a lot of people just focus on the sticker price, right?
That's right. But we're going to be going beyond that.
Okay, so give us the whole picture then.
We're going to look at everything. The purchase price, of course, but also maintenance, energy costs, even resale value, the whole 9 yards.
Right, now we're talking. So to really understand if an EV makes sense for someone, we need to look at the total cost of ownership, right?
Exactly. TCO, as it's often called.
Right, TCO. That takes everything into account, not just how much it costs to drive off the lot.
Think fuel, maintenance, insurance, and even how much the car will depreciate over time.
Gotcha. So you're saying that even though electric vehicles often have a higher upfront cost,
Especially in certain segments.
the lower operating costs can even things out over the life of the vehicle.
Sometimes dramatically even.
Wow, okay. I'm starting to see how this TCO thing can really change the way people think about EVs.
It's all about the bigger picture.
Right, right. So what segments are we talking about here? Where do electric vehicles have a higher upfront cost?
Well, one of our sources breaks down the TCO for different car segments, and it's really interesting. For example, for a small city car, the purchase price represents something like 74 to 77% of an EV's total cost of ownership.
Wow, that's a big chunk of the overall cost right from the start.
It is. Now, compare that to a mild hybrid or gasoline model in the same segment.
Hold on, what's a mild hybrid again?
It's basically a gas-powered car with a little electric motor to help out the engine so you get better fuel efficiency, but you can't drive it fully electric like a plug-in hybrid.
Oh, right, right. Okay, so back to the comparison then.
So for those mild hybrids or gas-powered cars, the initial purchase price only accounts for about 52% of the TCO.
So you're basically seeing a much bigger portion of your investment tied up in that initial purchase for an EV, at least for a city car.
Exactly.
What about larger cars? Does it look similar?
Similar story with larger sedans. The purchase price eats up like 73 to 78% of the TCO for electric vehicles. For the traditional models, it's more like 61 to 64%.
Okay, so that initial price difference is pretty substantial. But you're saying that those operating costs could potentially offset that higher upfront cost for EV owners.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And that's where we really start to see EVs shine, especially when you consider things like maintenance.
Right, because one of the biggest advantages of electric vehicles is that they don't require as much maintenance
Way less.
compared to those gas guzzlers.
Yeah, exactly.
And that can lead to some pretty big savings over time.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. No more oil changes, no spark plugs, no transmission fluid, all those things that just eat away at your bank account.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I
Yeah.
hate going to the mechanic. It's always bad news for my wallet.
Well, with an EV, you can kiss those worries goodbye.
That does sound nice.
Yeah.
But are the numbers really that different? Is the maintenance cost that much lower for EVs?
Oh, yeah. One of our sources mentions a 2019 study that found the average 6-year maintenance cost for electric cars was about 1,095 euros. And get this, for combustion engine vehicles, it was almost 1,900 euros.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
And the interesting thing is this difference has pretty much stayed the same over the years.
So we're talking about potentially saving hundreds, even thousands of euros just on maintenance alone over the life of the car.
That's right.
That's a pretty compelling argument for EVs.
Especially if you plan on keeping your car for a long time.
Right, long-term thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered purchase price and maintenance. Let's move on to fuel, or should I say electricity.
Right, because that's another big factor, the cost of keeping these cars running.
So how do those costs compare? Fuel for traditional cars versus electricity for EVs.
Well, it's a really interesting comparison, especially when you consider all the different ways to charge an EV.
Yeah, because you've got those public charging stations popping up everywhere, but then there's also the option of charging at home, right?
Exactly. And that's actually a key point. Charging at home is almost always the cheapest option.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So even if you drive a lot, charging at home could save you a ton of money compared to filling up at the gas station.
On average, home charging costs around 0.36 euros per kilowatt hour, at least with most domestic tariffs.
Okay, so that's pretty reasonable. What about those public charging stations? How do their prices compare?
Well, public charging stations tend to be pricier, as you might expect. For the slower, low power options, you're looking at an average of around 0.60 euros per kilowatt hour. And for those rapid charging
It's
stations,
the ones that can juice up your car in like, what, 20 minutes?
yeah, those ones, you're going to pay a premium for that speed.
So convenience comes at a price.
It does. You're looking at about 0.80 euros per kilowatt hour for those rapid chargers.
Gotcha. So those quick charges come with a price tag, but it still highlights how advantageous home charging can be if you have that option.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're mostly charging at home, you could be paying a less than half the price per kilometer compared to someone who relies on those public rapid chargers.
Wow, that really adds up over time.
It really does.
Okay, so home charging is the way to go if you can swing it. But how does that compare to traditional fuel costs? What are we looking at there?
Well, as of right now, the average price of gas is somewhere around 1.75 euros per liter, and diesel,
Probably pretty similar, right?
it's hovering around 1.64 euros per liter.
So basically, we're talking about gas being 5 times more expensive than charging at home.
Pretty much. Our sources estimate that last year, a city car used mainly in urban areas, the annual fuel cost was about 500 euros for an EV. And for a gas-powered car,
Probably double that at least.
over 1,000 euros.
Wow. Okay, so far we've looked at purchase price, maintenance, and energy costs. And it seems like there's some real potential for savings for EV owners in all those areas. But there's this big elephant in the room we haven't talked about yet.
Let me guess. Depreciation.
You got it. I've heard that electric cars, especially those fancy high-end models, they lose their value way faster than regular cars. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. And unfortunately, it is true to some extent. Electric cars, especially in the luxury segment, are currently depreciating at a faster rate than those gas-powered cars.
So why is that? Is it just because EV technology is advancing so rapidly?
That's definitely a big part of it. The EV market is still relatively young. It's like the Wild West out there, with things changing all the time.
So you're saying that today's hot new EV could be tomorrow's old news?
Exactly. There's a perception that today's cutting-edge EV will be outdated pretty quickly, especially with the pace of innovation.
Okay, so if you shell out for a brand new, top-of-the-line EV today, you might see its value plummet as those newer, shinier models come out.
It's a risk, for sure. In fact, one of our sources talks about this Mercedes EQE, a pretty swanky electric sedan. This thing lost an unbelievable 47,000 euros in value in just 3 months.
Obviously.
Yeah, and it only had 7,000 kilometers on it.
That's like 570 euros per day in depreciation.
It's the reality of the luxury EV market right now, unfortunately.
Okay, so depreciation is definitely a factor to consider, especially if you're thinking about buying a luxury EV. But what about for those of us who are looking for something more affordable? Is buying a used EV a good option?
That's a great question, and it's exactly what we'll be diving into next. The used EV market is full of surprises, and there are some things you need to know before you make a decision. So picking up where we left off, is buying a used EV a good way to save some cash?
It would seem that way, right? Let someone else take that initial depreciation hit, and then you come in and get a good deal. But I gotta be honest, it seems a little confusing. We were just talking about how EVs depreciate faster, especially those high-end models.
Right.
So wouldn't that mean that used EVs should be more affordable?
Well, you'd think so, but it's not quite that simple. The used EV market's a bit of a puzzle right now. While those luxury models are definitely seeing their value drop, used prices for popular city EVs are actually staying pretty steady.
Uh,
And in some cases, they're even going up.
Wait, so it's actually more expensive to buy a used electric car than a similar gas-powered car?
It's counterintuitive, I know. But the demand for used EVs is going through the roof right now, especially for those smaller, more budget-friendly models. People want to go electric, but there just aren't enough used EVs to go around.
So it's a basic supply and demand. Too many buyers and not enough cars.
Exactly. It's like trying to find a parking spot in a packed parking lot.
I feel that.
And this high demand is pushing up prices, which is creating a bit of a frenzy in the used EV market. So if you're trying to find a steal on a used EV, it might be tough.
So what's a smart car buyer supposed to do? Should they just forget about used EVs and go straight for a new one?
Not necessarily. It all comes down to what's important to you and how patient you are. If you're not in a rush, you could wait it out. The used EV market might cool down eventually as more electric cars hit the market and supply catches up with demand.
So it's a bit of a gamble. You could save money by waiting, or you could end up paying even more if prices keep going up. What about buying a used EV with a warranty on the battery? Would that be a smarter move?
That's always a good idea when you're buying a used EV. That remaining battery warranty can give you some peace of mind, especially if something happens to the battery. It could potentially save you a ton of money. But even with the warranty, you still need to consider the overall condition of the car and if it might need other repairs.
Okay, so buying a used EV can be tricky. There are good deals out there, but you got to do your research, be patient, and be ready to maybe pay a bit more. Let's switch gears for a second, talk about insurance. I've heard different things about insurance for EVs. Are they more expensive to insure than regular cars?
That's a question we get a lot, and I wish there was a simple answer, but it depends.
Oh, come on. It seems like everything with EVs depends on something else. Can't we get a straight answer for once?
I hear you. It can be frustrating, but in this case, it really does depend on a bunch of things. For starters, the initial price of the vehicle is a factor. EVs tend to have higher sticker prices than comparable gas-powered cars, which usually means they're more expensive to insure.
Right, that makes sense. The more expensive the car, the more it costs to fix or replace.
Exactly. And then there's the cost of repairs. Even though EVs usually need less routine maintenance, those specialized parts and battery repairs can be expensive if something goes wrong.
So if you get an fender bender, those repair bills could be higher for an EV,
Hmm.
right? But wait, aren't EVs supposed to be safer with all those fancy safety features? Shouldn't that make them less expensive to insure?
That's a good point. EVs often have advanced safety features like automatic emergency braking and lane departure warnings. And because they have a lower center of gravity, they're less likely to roll over. Some insurance companies do offer discounts for cars with those features, which can help offset some of the cost.
So it's a balancing act. Higher sticker prices and maybe pricier repairs, but they have those advanced safety features and they're less likely to roll over.
Exactly. Plus, to make things even more interesting, some insurance companies are now offering specific EV insurance policies. These policies take into account the things that make EVs unique, like the battery and the charging infrastructure.
Huh, that's interesting.
It is.
So you really have to shop around and compare insurance quotes from different companies.
Definitely. You might be surprised at how much the prices and coverage can vary.
Good to know. Okay, let's circle back to what makes EVs unique. Those batteries. They're obviously super important,
Essential.
but they also come with a lot of, well, baggage.
You could say that. The battery is like the heart of an EV, but it also makes a lot of people nervous.
Yeah, I've heard some scary stories about batteries dying early and costing a fortune to replace. Is there any truth to those?
Well, replacing an EV battery can definitely be a major expense, sometimes thousands of euros depending on the car. And like any complex technology, batteries can fail, and sometimes they fail before they should.
Okay, so it's not just a myth. Potential EV buyers need to factor that cost into their budget.
They do.
But what's the average lifespan of a battery? How many years or kilometers can we realistically expect them to last?
The good news is that battery technology has come a long way in recent years. Most car manufacturers now offer warranties of around 8 years or 100,000 kilometers for their battery packs.
So at least you're covered for those first few years. But what happens after that warranty runs out? Are you on your own if the battery decides to kick the bucket?
It's a valid concern, but you have to understand that battery degradation is a gradual process. Battery capacity does decrease over time, but most EV batteries are designed to keep a good portion of their capacity even after years of use.
So you might see your driving range decrease gradually, but it's not like your battery's just going to die suddenly after 8 years.
Exactly. And as a battery technology keeps getting better, we can expect even longer lifespans and better performance from EV batteries in the future.
That's good to hear. But what about those stories we hear about EV batteries catching fire or exploding? Is that something to really be worried about?
I get why people are concerned about that. New technology can be scary, especially when you hear those sensationalized stories, but it's important to keep things in perspective.
Okay, so how risky are these EV batteries?
Well, statistically speaking, EV battery fires are extremely rare, way less frequent than fires in gas-powered vehicles, actually.
Really? I guess those dramatic headlines tend to stick with us more than the everyday reality.
It's true. The media loves a good fire story, but most EV batteries operate safely and reliably for their entire lifespan.
That's reassuring. But even if they are rare, it's still pretty scary when it happens. What's being done to make those batteries safer and prevent those kinds of incidents?
A lot of research and development is going into making EV batteries safer and tougher. Manufacturers are constantly improving battery management systems, which are like super sophisticated onboard computers. These systems monitor everything, like temperature, voltage, and other important stuff to prevent overheating and other hazards.
So it's like having a little guardian angel watching over your battery, making sure it stays within safe limits.
Pretty much. And beyond those management systems, researchers are experimenting with new battery designs and chemistries that are inherently safer and less likely to experience what's called thermal runaway.
Thermal runaway.
Yeah, that's what can lead to those big fires.
Got it. So it sounds like the EV industry is taking battery safety very seriously.
Oh, yeah. They're making real progress in reducing those risks.
That's good to hear. Okay, let's move on to another important part of EV ownership, charging. We already talked about the cost differences between charging at home and using public charging stations. But what about convenience? How easy is it to actually charge an electric car?
Well, that really depends on your situation and how many charging stations there are in your area. For people who can charge at home, it's super convenient. You just plug in your car at night and it's good to go in the morning.
So it's basically like charging your phone, but on a much bigger scale.
Exactly. But for those who can't charge at home, things can get a little trickier. Finding public charging stations can sometimes feel like a treasure hunt, and waiting for your car to charge can be a real pain, especially if you're used to those quick gas station fill-ups.
Yeah, I can see how waiting around for your car to charge could be annoying.
It can.
What about those long road trips? Is it even possible to drive long distances in an electric car?
It's becoming more and more doable as charging infrastructure expands and those EV ranges get longer. But it definitely requires more planning than a road trip in a regular car.
So you can't just be spontaneous and take those detours or go off the beaten path in an EV.
You can, but you just have to be more aware of how much range you have left. Make sure you have charging stops planned along your route.
Right, you don't want to end up stranded somewhere with a dead battery.
Exactly.
So I guess that's where that range anxiety comes from, the fear of being tied to those charging stations and not having the freedom to just go wherever you want.
It's understandable.
But even if you have your route planned out, those charging stops can take a while, right?
Yeah, even with those super fast chargers, it can still take 30 minutes to an hour to get a decent charge. So road trips in an EV definitely require a bit more patience and flexibility.
So maybe pack a good book, download some podcasts, or bring along a travel game to keep yourself entertained during those charging breaks.
Yeah.
But let's break it down a bit. How does EV charging actually work? Is it as simple as plugging in your phone?
It's pretty straightforward. Most EVs use a standard charging connector, and there are different levels of charging available depending on the charger and the car's battery.
Okay, so let's talk about those different levels.
Okay, the slowest level is level 1 charging, which uses a regular household outlet. It's fine for charging overnight at home, but it can take a really long time to fully charge your car, sometimes like 24 hours or more.
So level 1 charging is like the slow and steady tortoise of the charging world.
Yeah, good analogy.
Not ideal for those who need a quick boost.
Yeah.
What about level 2 charging? Is that the hare?
You could say that. Level 2 charging uses a special charging station, and it's a lot faster than level 1. It usually takes between 4 and 8 hours to fully charge an EV.
Okay, so that's a more reasonable time frame if you're charging overnight or at work. But what about those super fast chargers I've heard about, the ones that can charge your car in like 15 minutes? Are those real or is that just marketing hype?
Those are called DC fast chargers, and they are the fastest way to charge an EV, but even those 15-minute claims have some fine print.
Oh, here we go.
DC fast chargers use direct current, which basically bypasses the car's onboard charger and sends a high-powered charge right to the battery.
So it's like a direct line of energy straight into the battery.
Exactly, but they're not as common as level 2 chargers, at least not yet.
So you can't just find them everywhere.
Right. And another thing is that not all EVs can handle DC fast charging. And even the ones that can might have limitations on how fast they can take that high-powered charge.
So it's not a perfect solution, but it sounds like a game changer for those longer trips, especially as more of those fast chargers become available.
Oh, absolutely. It'll definitely help with that range anxiety.
Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people. But let's zoom out a little bit and think about the bigger picture. How is this shift to electric vehicles changing the car industry as a whole?
Well, it's not just about replacing gas-powered cars with electric ones. It's a much bigger change than that.
Right, it's a whole new way of thinking about transportation.
It's a massive shift. The rise of EVs is making traditional car companies completely rethink their game plan.
It's like every car company out there is rushing to release their own electric models. It's a race to electrify everything.
You could say that. It's a really competitive market right now, which is actually a good thing for consumers.
Oh, so?
Well, this competition leads to innovation, lower prices, and more choices for buyers.
So it's a win-win. Better for the environment and better for our wallets.
Exactly.
But what about those companies that built their whole business model on gas-guzzling vehicles? Are they starting to feel the pressure?
They're definitely facing some tough questions about their future. This transition to EVs is changing everything and forcing them to adapt.
It's like the old guard versus the new wave of innovators.
You got it.
But this change isn't limited to the car manufacturers, right? It's affecting the whole automotive world.
Absolutely. It's like a ripple effect. It's impacting everyone from parts suppliers and dealerships to mechanics and even gas stations.
So it's a huge shakeup. What does this mean for jobs and the economy? Is this transition going to create new jobs, or is it going to lead to job losses?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's complicated. There's no easy answer. The shift to EVs will definitely lead to job losses in some areas, especially in traditional car manufacturing and those related industries.
Yeah, that's the downside.
But it's also creating new jobs in areas like battery manufacturing, charging infrastructure development, and software engineering.
So it's not just about assembling cars anymore, it's about building the whole ecosystem that supports them.
Exactly. And we have to remember that this transition won't happen overnight. It's going to take time. But with careful planning and investments in retraining and education, we can make this shift and create a more sustainable and equitable car industry.
It's a transition, and transitions are rarely smooth.
True.
But hopefully, those new job opportunities will make up for the losses
That's the goal.
and lead to a stronger economy in the long run. Okay, let's talk about the exciting stuff. What trends and technologies are shaping the EV world? What innovations are coming up that could really boost EV adoption?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next. From those cool solid-state batteries to wireless charging, and even the idea of your car becoming a mini power plant, the future of EVs is full of possibilities.
Welcome back to the deep dive. In the first two parts, we dug into the costs of owning an electric car, the good and the bad of those powerful batteries, and the ups and downs of the used EV market. Now let's talk about what's really driving this whole electric car revolution.
It's not just about looking cool and having fast acceleration, is it?
Right, there's got to be some bigger going on. So what are the big forces that are pushing this shift toward EVs?
Well, one of the most important drivers is climate change. People are more and more concerned about it, and we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Right, and transportation is a huge contributor to those emissions.
Exactly. Electric vehicles are a much cleaner and more sustainable option compared to those gas-guzzling cars.
Yeah, those tailpipe emissions are a problem. But what about the environmental impact of making those EV batteries? Doesn't that kind of cancel out the benefits of driving an electric car?
That's a good question. And we need to be honest. Electric vehicles aren't perfect. Making those EV batteries uses a lot of energy and resources. And mining those raw materials, like lithium, can have some negative environmental effects.
So it's not a completely clean technology. There are some trade-offs. But how do those environmental impacts compare to traditional gas-powered cars?
That's the key question. When you look at the whole picture, even with the emissions from making the batteries, electric vehicles still have a smaller carbon footprint than gasoline cars. And that's especially true if you charge those EVs with renewable energy sources like solar or wind power.
So the cleaner the energy grid, the cleaner the EV. But even if you charge those EVs with electricity from fossil fuels, they're still better for the environment in terms of emissions.
In most cases, yes. The exact numbers will depend on where you are and how your electricity is generated, but overall, EVs are a big step in the right direction when it comes to reducing emissions from transportation.
Okay, so the environmental benefits are clear. What about the economics? Are there economic forces pushing EV adoption too?
Absolutely. The cost of batteries has been dropping a lot in recent years, and that's made electric vehicles more affordable for the average person.
So we can expect to see those prices keep going down as production ramps up and more companies compete in the EV market.
That's right. It's those classic economies of scale, and it's good news for people who want to make the switch but have been put off by the price.
Yeah, those prices have been a barrier for a lot of people.
They have. And don't forget about the potential savings on fuel and maintenance that we talked about earlier. Electricity is generally cheaper than gasoline, and you don't need as much maintenance with an EV, so you can save a lot of money over the life of the car.
Right, and nobody likes paying those high gas prices.
Nobody. And in a lot of countries, governments are offering incentives and subsidies to encourage people to buy electric vehicles, which makes them even more affordable.
So it's kind of the perfect storm for EVs. Growing environmental concerns, lower battery costs, potential savings on fuel and maintenance, and supportive government policies. It makes sense that we're seeing such a fast shift towards EVs. What about those cool technological advancements you mentioned? How are those changing the future of electric vehicles?
We're seeing some amazing things happening in battery technology. Solid-state batteries, which are
Hmm.
still a few years away from being in most cars, have huge potential.
Yeah, those sound really interesting. What makes them so special?
Well, they could offer much higher energy density, faster charging, and improved safety compared to those lithium-ion batteries we have now.
So higher energy density means you can drive farther on a single charge, right?
Exactly. And faster charging times would make EVs way more appealing to people who are used to just quickly filling up their gas tank.
Yeah, that would be a game changer. It sounds like we're on the verge of a huge leap forward in EV technology. But while we're waiting for those solid-state batteries, are there any other cool innovations happening?
Oh, yeah. Even with lithium-ion batteries, there are constant improvements. Researchers are figuring out how to pack more energy into those batteries so the driving range keeps getting longer, and they're making charging technologies faster.
So it's constant evolution.
It is.
Each new generation of batteries is pushing the limits.
That's right.
But it's not just the batteries.
Right.
What about the rest of the car?
There's a lot happening there, too. We're seeing innovations in electric motors, power electronics, and software. These are making EVs more efficient, more powerful, and more connected.
So the whole car is getting a high-tech upgrade. The future of electric vehicles looks pretty bright then. We have these advancements in technology, growing demand from consumers, and governments are supporting it all. It seems like everything is in place for a successful shift to electric vehicles. But are there any challenges that still need to be addressed? Could something slow this whole thing down?
You're right, there are still some challenges. One of the biggest is charging infrastructure. We need to build a lot more charging stations to handle all those new EVs coming on the road.
Yeah, we've talked about range anxiety. People need to know that they can charge their cars easily and reliably.
Exactly. We need more charging stations in convenient places along highways, in cities, and at apartments and workplaces. And those charging stations need to work with all kinds of EV models.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about making sure the charging network is standardized and easy for everyone to use.
Right. And it has to be accessible to everyone no matter how much money they make or where they live.
We don't want only rich people to have access to charging.
Exactly. Equity and accessibility are essential as we build this charging infrastructure. But beyond that, we also need to consider the environmental impact of making those batteries and make sure the materials are sourced ethically.
Right, we talked about the potential problems with mining those battery materials.
Yeah, the EV industry needs to be responsible. We need sustainable and ethical sourcing, cleaner battery production, and better recycling programs.
So it's about thinking about the entire life of the battery, from the mine to the recycling center.
Exactly. We have to make sure every step is sustainable and ethical.
Well, it's been an awesome journey exploring the world of electric vehicles. It's a complicated change, but it's also really exciting. We're changing the way we power our cars, and that has huge implications.
It's full of challenges and opportunities, for sure.
But if we work together, we can make this transition happen in a way that's good for the environment and for everyone.
I agree.
So that wraps up our deep dive into electric vehicles. We hope this has given you a better understanding of the costs, the benefits, the challenges, and the amazing potential of electric cars. If you found this episode helpful and interesting, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into all sorts of cool topics. Thanks for listening.